Are you struggling to beat the tower bosses in Palworld, or just having a tough time trying to beat higher level pals? Today we have a combat video guide for you guys to be able to make it so that you guys can take on these bosses even though you can be under leveled or you're fighting in the hard mode difficulty and you're having a hard time dealing with it. I want to first thank John Campon here. He's the one who's kindly provided the footage for me, so make sure you check his Twitch in the description down below. Now, the biggest thing to know is that during tower bosses, there's definitely food that you can eat to increase the attack power of yourself and your pals. One of the big ones is rushboard bacon and eggs, but there are other items that can increase the attack in general. Now, let me comment over this fight, but this tips and tricks applies to any battle, but essentially the three main things you want to worry about is number one, putting as much damage as humanly possible into the boss with yourself. So making sure you have a good weapon is actually pretty important. Just leaving everything up to your pal isn't going to work if it's a tower boss. If it's not a tower boss, you can leave it to your pal. But if it's a tower boss and there's a time limit, you definitely want to be able to do as much damage as possible with yourself as well as your pals. Second thing is you want to be able to do iframe dodges with your pals by retreating them into the sphere when a big attack comes. Marcus has essentially 4 big attacks. He's got his lightning that he can shoot through walls. He's got an AoE circle fire or circle lightning attack that triggers after a short period of time. He's got a minefield of fire where he can have the ground blow up in an explosion, and he technically has a whirlwind fire that does take a little bit of time. Doesn't do much damage, but it's a pretty telegraphed attack. Last but not least is you want to be able to cycle through your pals to be able to make it so that they can heal when they're no longer fighting on the battlefield. So in the beginning, right now, John, within the first minute and a half, has taken the boss's HP to about 20-25% gone. With a big attack coming, he gets out of the way, he retreats his pal, pulls it out. This way, he can avoid the damage that would have taken from Yormantide by retreating it safely. But during that animation, he is stuck for a short period of time, so when you're doing the retreating of the pals, you can be kind of vulnerable because you can't roll right away. John decides to eat that flaming whirlwind, even though he could have dodged, but as you can see, the damage that it did to Yormantide was a little bit negligible. However, right now, this Yormantide, as you can see, is sitting at about 50% HP. John tries to iframe dodge the fireball attack, but he was a little bit too slow and still ate the damage. So he swaps out to his higher health Yormantide. As you can see, this Yormantide is essentially almost at full health, but it is sort of getting stuck in the wall with its AI. Now, this Yormantide can do decent damage as well. So John's running 2 Yormantides right now to be able to do as much damage to essentially Marcus. As you can see right there, the AI made it so that Yormantide's water ball attack was tracking him, but it kind of missed him because it was out of the way. And then John had to dodge the big attack and also pull his Yormantide out and back in. With another big attack in, he's trying to dodge, but as you can see, it clips him and knocks his shield off. In these battles specifically, you are always 2 to 3 hits away from dying. Specifically in this battle right here, John's shield is able to eat 2 weak attacks, but if it's a big attack, he will die if he's clipped with it head on. As you can see right there, he takes a little bit of damage from collateral from that fireball, so it wasn't a really strong attack, but it still did some damage to him. If he was hit full on with it, he would take full damage from it. Now, this Yormantide right here has gotten itself all the way down to 50% HP, but he was also able to get Marcus's HP down to 50% at the 4-minute 30-second mark. With that, it should mean if he continues the same amount of output damage, he should have about 30 seconds left in this battle, which is a little bit tight. So John is on the clock, and he needs to pump as much damage. Big attack coming out, he retreats his Yormantide, puts it back out, but unfortunately he puts it back too early, and Yormantide gets clipped. Yormantide gets clipped again with another AoE flame attack, and now Yormantide's sitting at essentially less than 20%. It takes a big hit, he quickly retreats it, pulls out the Yormantide. That Yormantide had a sliver of HP left, so he's stuck using the Yormantide with 50% HP. He can't swap out to his Yormantide because it's very dangerous, because right now he needs to have his other Yormantide stay in the back and heal. What John does now is he's getting ready to prep his Anubis to come out, because after he dodges that big attack with his Yormantide, he puts out Anubis. Anubis is a really strong ground type unit, but even though he's ground type, he can soak up damage, but he doesn't want to have Anubis out for too long because he's going to be taking a ton of damage. And with 2 attacks, Anubis, or at least with 2 weak attacks, Anubis is already sitting at 80% HP. So John decides to rotate over to his Yormantide with the most HP. The second Yormantide has healed up to 10% HP, but still not comfortable enough to John to put it out. So then he grabs out his Yormantide with 50% HP that has healed up to 60-70%, and he continues the battle over here. Now, this attack over here, John is able to kill it, but he's almost clips into the wall and gets stuck and gets evaporated by it. He was able to take out his Yormantide in time to make sure that it was able to avoid that big attack, and then he swaps out the Yormantide back in. With 4 minutes 3 seconds remaining, the boss is sitting at around 30% HP, but as you can see right there, Yormantide is actually very strong. His Yormantide is doing, at least from what it looks like, 1,500 to 2,000 damage with a single Hydro Pump, but as you can see, it takes a while for it to attack. He does have other faster attacks that's doing 700, 800 per tick, which is pretty nice, but he is taking a good amount of damage. Now, the biggest thing to understand is he could technically swap out his Yormantide to the low health Yormantide, but it's a little bit dangerous, because if that Yormantide does get clipped, he's only stuck with 1 Yormantide. He doesn't want to be in that situation. With 3 minutes 45 seconds left, the boss is basically at 25% HP, which puts Sean in a really comfortable position. But one thing you'll start to know is that eventually his bullet count is going to fall below 999. Now, if you're wondering how much bullets did John start off with, he started with about 2,700. One mistake that John made that was a little bit fatal, that could have been omega tragic, is hunger. He forgot to equip his food into his small feed pouch, and as a result, he had to manually feed his pals during a boss fight, which is very, very scary. Ideally, what you want to do before doing a pal fight is you want to make sure you have the small feed pouch upgraded, and all the small feed pouch allows you to do is put a food item into that pouch in your inventory, and it will feed your pal and yourself automatically. That's actually very important, because you never want to be feeding your pals in the heat of the battle, because things can go awry really, really quickly. Another thing you're going to note is that John's shield is actually able to take 1 hit from a weak attack, but it will fully shave if he takes a strong attack. Now, John is technically level 46, and he has really good gear. If John's gear was any weaker, he probably wouldn't be able to do this fight. Or at least if he was doing this fight, he would have very small room for error. In this scenario, he's able to take 2 weak attacks before his shields shave off, and it looks like he's able to take a few hits from getting clipped by weaker attacks as well. Now, the biggest thing to know is that this specific combination works through any battle. You can do the iframe dodging for pals with big attacks in either the tower battles or just in the overworld where you're fighting a difficult pal. Or not only that though, you can swap out your pals in and out to be able to keep their health total, especially if you're fighting a pal where it's going to take you a lot longer time to be able to grind it out. But anyways, if you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, let me know down in the description down below, and hopefully this guide helped you guys out.